Mr. Christopher Chope.
So David, this last 2.5 hours have been absolutely fascinating, because that's what this chamber should be about. The government and I think the opposition front bench have come in with their own ideas, and then during the course of this debate it's become apparent that my honourable friend for Gainsborough, that his new clause has really captured the imagination of the House and has actually superseded the Amendment 89, which had been put forward by the Scottish Nationalist Party. I'm going to say to the honourable gentleman, the right honourable gentleman, member for Dundee East, that I think that he has made a very wise decision in saying that he is going to bring the full weight of his party in Parliament behind my honourable friend's new clause, because it is much clearer, more clearly defined than his own amendment. And I must say, I think he should get credit for that, because sometimes, and this is often a propensity of the government or official opposition, that because they've taken a line, they are reluctant to change that when faced with strong arguments against it. And I think that what has happened in the course of this debate is that my honourable friend has shown that New Clause 3 really does find favour with a large number of people across this House. And the reason I support New Clause 3 is because it would indeed, as it says in the explanatory statement, entirely remove the remaining reservations over financial and economic matters, home affairs, trade and industry, energy, transport, social security, regulation of the professions, employment, health and medicines, media and culture, and other miscellaneous matters, and subject to the consent of the Treasury being required for changes in old age pensions which would affect the liabilities of the National Insurance Fund. So by giving full fiscal autonomy to the Scottish Parliament, we would then be giving the Scottish Parliament full fiscal responsibility. And I think that, as my right honourable friend was saying, the former Chancellor of the Exchequer was saying in his intervention, that's a very important and worthwhile matter. What my constituents are worried about is this mix and match. And when I was privileged to be a member of the Political and Constitutional Affairs Committee and we took evidence in Scotland, one of the most telling pieces of evidence for me was that from I can't remember which university he came from, but he was an academic, and he said, where you have shared responsibility, that is a recipe for conflict. And that has been the problem. That for too long we have been sharing these responsibilities between parts of the United Kingdom and other parts of the United Kingdom, and one part has been played off against another. And that means that those who want to promote a particular agenda are given ammunition because they are able to argue that the share of that responsibility is being ill-defined, which it almost invariably is, because it's always open to interpretation. And indeed, some of the evidence we had suggested that you could have such a debate or dispute ultimately being determined by the courts. In other words, the courts in the United Kingdom determining what Parliament had decided should be a split or shared responsibility. What a recipe for conflict and division. So my honourable friend's amendment has great clarity, and it takes the debate leapfrogs. Obviously it can't be done instantly, but it means that instead of, as Amendment 89 does, which says this issue should be left to the discretion of the Scottish Parliament as to when they want to take on full fiscal autonomy, this would say that this Parliament now is saying we agree that there should be full fiscal autonomy for the Scottish Parliament. And that would be a big way of this Parliament saying to the Scottish people that we respect the decision of the Scottish people in the recent general election, and we respect the decision of their elected representatives as enunciated by the Right Honourable Gentleman Member for East Dundee East, that they are going to support this new clause. And I hope that this will find favour also with my right honourable friend, whom I'm delighted to see on the front bench in preparation for responding to this debate. On several occasions during the last Parliament, he came along and gave evidence to the Political and Constitutional Affairs Committee, and at that stage, there were only some on the committee, and I include myself amongst the optimists on the committee, who thought that it wouldn't be long before my right honourable friend was indeed the fully fledged Secretary of State for Scotland, and it's wonderful that has come to pass. This is an important debate, not least because it would actually sort out the problem of the Barnett formula, because it would effectively abolish the need for the Barnett formula. A formula which is very unpopular with my constituents, because they're always told when they argue for free prescriptions or free long-term care for the elderly or free tuition fees in universities, they're always told these things can't be afforded in England, and somehow they can be afforded in Scotland. Yet at the same time they point out that they are paying £1,600 a head towards Scotland, and so it can't be an issue of not being afforded in England. It must be something to do with the Barnett formula. And so this new clause would actually resolve that issue, and I think help to bring the United Kingdom back together again with less conflict than I think there would be if we allow the too little too late agenda to be perpetuated. I mean, it's some time ago now, Sir David, that I was privileged to be an undergraduate at the Scottish University. But even when I was there then, that was there were the early stirrings of dissatisfaction amongst people in Scotland about the constitutional arrangements affecting them and the rest of the United Kingdom. And I'm bound to say that since then there has been a process by this Parliament and by the majority, I think, of my English colleagues, a process of continuous appeasement. And it hasn't actually resulted in a satisfactory solution. I think my honourable friend's new clause gives us the opportunity of doing away with all that little by little continuous appeasement, being forced to do this, forced to do that. It actually says, let's take the initiative. Let's take the initiative, give the Scottish people what they want, and give them the responsibility to go with that power. So that's why I'm an enthusiast for this new clause.